All right, let's start with a brief introduction from each of you. Just name, role, what you're currently focused on, and then we'll jump into the discussion. We'll go with you first. Work our way out.
Okay, Carol from China. I co-founded an academy that helps to cultivate innovative talent, and we also incubate AI plus hardware startups. But our differentiation is that we actually build a whole innovation ecosystem. So 70% of all the founders who come in have no work experience, no teams, and no ideas. So talking about empowerment and helping them to become successful entrepreneurs. So now we have currently around like 900 entrepreneurs with the 90 startups. And 100% of them have been able to get angel round funding so far. And we brought 40 of them to exhibit at CES this time. So yeah.
All right, I'm Michael Sherwood. I work for a small computer company. You might have heard of us called NVIDIA. We power the next generation of AI. My specific role at NVIDIA is to work with state and government leaders from the Mississippi to Alaska to Hawaii, what we consider the West. So I can cover that area and specifically work with governors, city leaders, county leaders, airports, stadiums, municipal type facilities, help them understand AI, how to not just adopt it, but how to train for it, how to start building their workforce, how to educate their community, and how to build a roadmap for their future.
Oh, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Lewis Hong, and I used to work for a small space startup called SpaceX. Spent 7 years at SpaceX, built a rocket factory kind of with Elon and others from 2012 2019. Left SpaceX to join a battery company. We're pretty lucky to catch the EV wave as it starts kind of in 2019, 2022. And yeah, now I am a investor. So I started with angel investing with our own money and from me and my partner, and now we have officially started our fund, investing in what we call hard tech. Now, what is hard tech? Right? I think most people in Silicon Valley, so the community group, like obviously like softwares, like SaaS, this has been propelling kind of the growth for the past 2 decades. Now we see the coming decade being a golden age for all things physical. So what we told founders is that, hey, in addition to bits, we also like atoms, and we're an ex-SpaceX and Tesla team looking for the next SpaceX and Tesla.
All right, good evening. I'm Pete West. I'm with Core Wireless. I'm based in Virginia, right outside Washington, D.C. And Core Wireless, it's a company you probably never heard of because we're sort of the technology company behind the scenes that makes all this stuff work when you think of connected devices. In fact, ChargerGoGo is a customer of ours. So the kiosks you saw at the Rose Bowl and other kiosks you see plugged in, they're actually connected through a wireless network that we provide. We've got about 21 million devices connected globally, so we're the largest by far. And our job, and what you'll learn a little bit more about, how do we fit in this ecosystem and the journey of connected devices. But I'll say how dumb and down. Our job is to make dumb devices smart. And we're going to talk about how does AI make them intelligent. So I'm looking forward to the panel. Thank you.
Appreciate that. So we hear every day that AI will replace jobs, but today's conversation is about something different. How AI can restore agency, unlock entrepreneurship, and scale human potential. This isn't about building smarter machines, it's about building stronger people. So to get started, I want to throw out some cross-panel questions. Anybody can chime in. First question is, when did you realize that AI could empower people, not replace them?
Well, I'll just say that, I mean, look, we're all using AI in some shape or form. And you know, having a team that you want to have your team nimble and operationally efficient. And for us, for our company, I think for a lot of our customers, we take the busy out of busy work. While implementing AI into a lot of different ways that we interact internally, but also with our customers. So it helps. I mean, immediately you see it takes the friction of doing your daily tasks. You sort of have to sit down and say, okay, what is my job function, and how can I take a piece of my job function and leverage AI to be more productive? Maybe get more free time. Maybe that's free time you can spend with your family. Doesn't mean you have to spend more time at work, and maybe you can get out of the office earlier. So we're seeing that in immediate impact. Also I have two daughters, 11 and 13, and they're using it. I mean, so I got teenagers using AI, and they're in their school. So I think we're all probably going to be saying a lot of the same, things here when we talk about how we're seeing AI really empower that worker. And I think June said it augment, their capabilities.
Well, I think we have to be realistic as well. I think it's going to empower and also replace, right? Depending on what job sectors you're in, and also, of course, in the short and medium term, it's going to replace more people than empower, probably. And we have to start with a hard truth that I think empowerment and enablement doesn't mean inclusion. So of course we already see a lot of challenges, right? Of like talent polarization, opportunities, and sort of like the divide getting bigger and bigger. But I think the answer is not anti-technology, but collective redesign. So I think we do have to think about how the inclusion problem, right? I think the new divide globally now is not AI versus machines. It's people who know how to leverage AI versus people who don't know how to leverage AI. So education becomes very important. Reskilling, sort of like not driving for absolute equality, but distributing the opportunity at least, right? The AI literacy, reskilling programs, so to drive for like a more equitable, sort of like opportunities to start with. Yeah.
That segues us into our next question, which is: do you believe AI is ultimately a threat to human jobs or an empowerment to people, and why?
I think I'll take that. Well, I think most of the press focus on the negative, because I think the negative catches people's attention, gets people fired up, and it gets views. But I think the flip side of AI is that hey, you can look at AI as a technology that does make everything easier and potentially take remove processes. But you can also look at AI as a platform that almost enables kind of access to more jobs and more opportunities that one may not be aware of. I will give you a kind of a specific example for our audience here. Who here is familiar with a foundry? Probably no. Maybe okay, good. The manufacturing crew, all right. Who is familiar with casting? Right. These are tremendous critical, hardware manufacturing processes. Okay, that's required for everything that you touch physically. Okay. Now, America used to have over 6,000 foundries, across the nations. I think recently has gone down to 2,000, and I think we are losing, a couple hundreds, as we go. And I think the reason is very obvious. I mean, you don't really go to college, to thinking that, hey, I'm gonna, obviously go into metrologies and I'm gonna be working in the foundries, growing up. But we need these talents, and so we have a tremendous, like a talent gap right now in America. Even though there's this call about reshoring and rebuilding America, so how do we solve it? Well, with technologies. We invested in a AI foundry company that's essentially creating kind of what you call kind of like a foundry in a lab in a box. You can imagine that's a 3D, almost like a 3D printer, but for foundries. So it's all-in-one foundries that enables even a person like myself to complete investment casting grade foundries parts. But for someone that have very very minimal knowledge of metrologies, for someone that hey perhaps used to he's last time maybe a Uber driver, but now he can be potentially part of the rebuild movements and working in foundries. And I think that's the power of AI and kind of this next reindustrialization, democratization could be.
Michael, NVIDIA sits at the infrastructure layer of AI. What's NVIDIA's role, vision, and recent activities in this AI revolution?
Well, I'm glad you're all here listening to me versus my boss, Jensen, over at CES that was just finishing. Look, I mean, there's so many implications of what AI can do and what we are doing. NVIDIA is not just a hardware company. We're a software company, as we're known for more of an ecosystem, creating hardware and software that allows us to empower builders. So think of maybe it this way, easiest way to think about NVIDIA. What are we? We sell Lego sets, about 70% of the Lego sets. So we sell the foundation, we sell some of these things we call blueprints and models you'll hear, but that's where we stop. Then we allow the creative individuals around to finish that last 30% of the Lego. Just like you heard June talk about ChargerGoGo being part of NVIDIA's Inception program, they're using some of our base technologies to further that and to further their technologies for their customers. And you see that across many, many segments. I think the biggest thing for all of you to think about is don't think about what NVIDIA is or isn't. Think about how you're going to empower your communities to learn, reskill, and bring your communities along, because it won't work if only the few know AI and the technology. You need to bring everyone together, understand how to get empowered, understand how to use it, and then move forward. I guess the best example I'd give you, when I was a kid growing up, and I'm probably older than most of you in here, there was somebody in our neighborhood who had a set of encyclopedias. When I wanted to write a book report, I had to go down to my neighbor's house and borrow their encyclopedias, look through it, trace the state or whatever I was working on, and come back. Now you have all that power in the individual house or an individual phone. The problem is you got to teach people how to use that technology, and they need access to it via a wireless means, via some kind of connectivity. So those are the things that, from an AI perspective, if we want to be competitive, is understanding what we need, understanding what our community needs, because AI won't replace you if you understand the technology.
And what responsibility do you think infrastructure providers have in shaping how AI is used, not just how fast it does, right? We're seeing a race, basically, right? But there's also implications that come.
Like anything, there's going to be winners in the race, and there'll be some that may not do as well. I think all of us that create products and opportunity have then an obligation to provide that the best tools and services they can to their community. And the market will decide what they like and what they don't like. There's lots of tools out there, Instagram, and there's competitors to Instagram. People go, TikTok and others, people will pick what media platform they want to use. They'll choose what AI platforms they want to integrate and use as well.
Carol, you work across many startups, corporates, and governments globally. Shenzhen has a unique ecosystem where hardware, software, and AI move together. What lessons can the global AI community learn from Shenzhen about building AI hardware in that scale?
I think the biggest lesson that Shenzhen can offer to the world is that when you can, when does AI plus hardware can scale, right? Then you need to shorten the cycle from idea to prototype to iteration to production. So once you shorten that cycle, then AI can really scale up. Jensen Huang, your boss, actually he went to Hong Kong last time, and he said that, the Greater Bay Area, which, Shenzhen is the main city, that, it's a very unique place in the whole world, probably like the only place in the world where you can find electric mechanical capabilities and AI capabilities at the same place. So that's very key because, Shenzhen is dense enough that you can find from components to manufacturing, to certification, verification, all these resources all in one place that enable you to pretty much iterate at 10 times the speed at 1/10 the cost, compared to the US. That's very, very key. And actually, I just came back from Silicon Valley, and now the entrepreneurs told me that the cost is actually at 30 times now in some sectors, not even 10 times. So I think the old model, when we think about it, Apple is the classic example that, Apple does the high-end R&D in Silicon Valley, while Foxconn does the production and manufacturing in Shenzhen. I think that model doesn't work as well anymore. You actually need to have the high-end R&D, production, manufacturing capabilities, all in that same place in order for you to keep on iterating, based on user feedback. And I think that result is demonstrated at CES. So every year, so last year, for example, around like 45, 100 exhibitors. China's 1/3 of the world, and Shenzhen is almost like 40% of China. And that's like 10% of the world brought the exhibitors, to exhibit, and they're iterating at a much faster speed. And of course, in addition to the manufacturing, we have a very affordable big talent pool. There are around like 11 million students graduating from college every year from China, and 40% of that are STEM related subjects. And also the vertical scenarios, they're open. For the startups to quickly, put into deployment mode, having these partners in place. So I think that's the lesson that Shenzhen can offer. You need to build a whole, ecosystem for this to thrive.
Yeah, and in reference to ecosystem, we're going to jump back over to Pete. Connectivity is the invisible backbone, as you said, in AIoT. How does AIoT and edge intelligence enable workers to become independent operators?
Great question. And, AIoT, Before that, there was IoT, Internet of Things. Before IoT, it was called machine-to-machine technology. We're going back 30 plus years, and back when networks were built on 2G technology, where you could barely send a text message and it might go through. Networks weren't reliable. There wasn't the coverage, the low performance, low security. You go 2G to 3G to 4G, 5G, satellite, all sorts of other networks out there. And yeah, I mean, without the networks, none of this would work. And it's really the fabric, the stitching that brings it all together. And when you combine, these reliable, robust networks with smart devices and AI at the edge, you hit where's the lieutenant? You hit the trifecta, I guess they call it in Vegas. And you're winning. It's going to actually really fundamentally change the role of the worker in their everyday activities. Maybe just to add on a couple things here, because when I think of that combination, two things come to mind, which is productivity, and we talk about empowerment. And productivity, IoT was really built on making devices smart to be able to talk to devices, remotely access devices, collect data, to be more operationally efficient, not have to send an employee out there to touch the hardware. But when you layer on the AI at the edge, and you do have to send someone out there to touch a device, to troubleshoot, to perform some sort of task, you have a lot more real-time intelligent data at your fingertips, and you don't have to rely on the home office, driving back escalations, dealing with cloud, back and forth data. So you're really adding a lot more productivity to that employee's day-to-day function. And the empowerment piece, and this again kind of hits home with my daughters being 11 and 13, and everyone says, what's the job market going to look like in the next 10 years, right? I don't think AI is going to look. Yeah, are some jobs going to go away? Yeah, well, guess what? People probably shouldn't have been doing those jobs anyway. Maybe they're dangerous jobs, and you can have some other, robot. And by the way, robotics is the big vertical that we've seen in the last couple of years. But I think AI won't take your job, but someone who is using AI will.
Welcome to Charger Yoga.
Right. So you got to sort of get on board, get on the bus, or otherwise you get left behind. And when you have that type of AI capability, you're able to. I see a world where you could hire someone who's brand new, no skill set, or take a junior person, and by leveraging AI, upgrade them. So you're not replacing, but you're upgrading that employee to perform more tasks, senior tasks that they didn't know how to do, and that's going to give them empowerment. It's going to make them feel really good about their job. It's going to make them feel more successful than ever.
Yeah. We'll jump over to Lewis for the last straight question, and we'll go across the panel again. What red flags tell you an AI platform may scale efficiently but at the cost of human dignity?
Wow, that's a good for you.
Very philosophical.
Okay. Let's quote Elon. Okay. Yeah, Elon says a lot of stuff these days, and you may hate or love this guy, but he says something right sometimes. I think Elon once said, "How do you judge the company's success? Okay, does the company produce a product that people love, and more importantly, does the product, enable human flourish, human abundance? Okay, does the company, aligns, with human abundance, or does it take advantage of human weakness?" I think it's always a kind of a key point. That's what we look for kind of in companies. We invest in physics or atoms because, that's hard to cheat, right? We invest in a Deep Fissions, which is a new SMR, nuclear fission company that's promised to revolutionize energy abundance, by creating SMRs that are scalable in the gigawatts, that can co-locate in the data centers, and that can deploy in months, not years, at a cost that's 90% less than any nuclear kind of counterparts. Okay, so, when they're successful, energy is abundant. I think that's going to be apparent. We invest in Foundry Labs, which I just mentioned. Okay, they created advanced next generations foundries and casting for America to be built in America. When they're successful, okay, manufacturing supply chain is abundant in America. Okay, so I think and then we even invest in a company recently, okay, that's literally out of this world. We invest in a company that's about to send the world's first space stations commercial space stations up in space this year. So when they're successful, more people would have access to space, and people will actually explore that world. So I think the answer to make the answer that questions, I think it's the answer is if the company is successful and the incentive aligns with human abundance and not human addictions, I think that's a good judgment. Good
That was pretty cool. All right, I got one final question. We'll just jump through each of you. You can do one word if you want. If we get this right, what does a day in the life of an AI-empowered worker look like 5 years from now?
I think we're going through like a big storm right now, and when the big storm comes, there are pillars that you need to hold on to, which is like family, maybe religion, your values, community. So I think if AI goes right, we should build AI reskilling into your work program, like during the day, like you can actually keep on learning and upskilling yourself. So there are more upward mobility that AI will provide, and at nighttime that frees you and let you have more time to spend with family and friends and communities who you love.
Going with empowering.
Empowering.
I think that's already said. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I back to the family thing, but also it's going to help. I think it's going to help employees understand, how do you scale AI with a purpose? Maybe really it's something that they've always wanted to do in life and never had a chance to do because they didn't have that type of capability at their fingertips. And I think of like sustainability. I think of like things that could really make a difference in the world.
The future of AI is artificial. It's deeply human. Please join me in thanking them for coming on the stage.